Welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michaelson. This week, Democratic presidential candidate Marianne Williamson is here in studio to discuss why she's challenging President Biden from the left. Then, the Republican Assembly leader in California, James Gallagher, also in studio, talk about the GOP pushback on crime and homelessness. The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
We continue our series of interviews with the presidential candidates with Marianne Williamson. Good to have you back in our studio today.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Marianne has written a series of best-selling books, including really a worldwide phenomenon called A Return to Love, which you see right there. She also founded Project Angel Food, which delivers meals every day to some of California's most vulnerable residents. Marianne was last in our studios back in 2019 when running for the Democratic nomination. In March of this year, she made this announcement.
I, as of today, am a candidate for the office of President of the United States.
Since then, she's been traveling around the country making the pitch on why voters should choose her. Marianne Williamson, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So, why are you running?
I'm running because some things need to be said and some things need to be done. We need to make a just transition from a dirty economy to a clean economy, from a war economy to a peace economy, and we need to make an economic U-turn in this country. We have 1 in 4 Americans who live with medical debt. We have 1/3 of America's workers who live on less than $15 an hour, can't even find a place to live. Our seniors, we have half of our seniors living on less than $25,000 a year. We have 70% of our people who report living with constant economic anxiety. And the system as it is so geared towards greater obeisance to the profit-making goals of huge corporate entities, as opposed to the health and the safety and well-being of the American people, that status quo will not disrupt itself. It will take somebody from the outside who comes in and says we need to turn this ship around.
And part of the foundation of what you want to do is what you call the Economic Bill of Rights.
Right.
What is that?
So Franklin Roosevelt wrote an Economic Bill of Rights, which I've updated for the 21st century. Allows for universal health care. It allows for tuition-free college at public colleges and universities and tech schools. It allows for always the right for collective bargaining. It allows for child care. It allows for paid family leave and guaranteed housing and guaranteed sick pay and a guaranteed living wage.
Okay, so we know there are a lot of Democrats that would love to have all that happen.
Yeah.
But you've got a very split Congress,
yes,
right? You got a filibuster that is still in place in the Senate, and you've got a conservative Supreme Court. So how do you make that happen given all of that?
Well, every president is hoping that the House and the Senate will be of his or her party.
Yeah.
That goes, and the president doesn't have a magic wand. We don't want the president to have a magic wand. There are 3 co-equal branches of government, although somebody needs to tell the Supreme Court that right now. The president has the bully pulpit, and I would use it. And I would talk about a vision of America in which we return to a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. For all intents and purposes, we're a government of the corporations, by the corporations, and for the corporations. The American people would not see everything accomplished in my 4 years that I've talked about. That's not how our system operates. But the American people would see the beginning of all those things. And a generation would be ready to take it from there in 4 years.
At the White House, Karine Jean-Pierre was asked about you and essentially kind of mocked you. Here's what happened.
If I had a what is it called, a little globe here, crystal ball, then I can tell you. But I imagine 8-ball, whatever. If I could feel her aura, I just don't have anything. I just don't have anything to share on that.
How do you respond to that?
The president had said on his first day in office that if anyone in his administration showed disrespect to anyone, he would fire them on the spot. So I guess my first question is, why does she still have her job? I also hope that the American people see that that's how vicious the system is. There is a refusal to allow anyone into the conversation who does not toe the line with their pre-prescribed conversation if they can at all help it. But as was once said about Elizabeth Warren, I continue to persevere. And people see what that's about.
Well, let's talk about the president's record, because you're essentially running against him. Is there a single example of something that you think that you could have done and realistically gotten through based off of
absolutely.
the constraints of everything that happened that he didn't do.
The president did not have to okay the Willow Project. The Willow Project is an $8 billion ConocoPhillips oil extraction project on the North Slopes of Alaska. Now, the president brags about his admittedly healthy investment in green energy that is in the Inflation Reduction Act. However, the Willow Project completely nullifies all of that, and the president has given more oil drilling permits than Trump did. The president is ramping up fossil fuel extraction at the same time that we need to be ramping it down. The president takes an incremental approach to repairing the lives of so many people. Listen, I give him credit for having beaten Trump in 2020. I have certainly respect for the man as a human being. This is not personal. But it does not logically follow that because he beat him in 2020, that he necessarily is the best candidate for 2024. And the Democrat and Democratic-leaning electorate should have a chance at debates to hear the president, to hear Robert Kennedy, to hear myself, so that they can make that decision. The president represents that corporate wing of the Democratic Party, no matter what they say about how he's so Rooseveltian. Actually, no, he's not.
If it ends up becoming Biden versus Trump,
Yeah.
do you back Joe Biden in that race?
My loyalty is to my country. We now have a corporate matrix, insurance companies, pharmaceutical companies, big ag, big oil, big chemical companies, gun manufacturers, big oil and defense contractors. They run this country. I will do whatever I can this year in order to provide people with the option of turning that, repudiating that.
Wouldn't that get worse under Trump versus
Absolutely.
Biden?
Absolutely. I will do whatever it seems to me is the greatest possibility of making sure that the fascists do not get the White House in 2024.
And that may be, or most likely would be, endorsing
I'm not going
Biden.
there. I don't. I can only tell you what's true in my heart right now.
Got it.
And what's true in my heart right now is I will do whatever it seems to me is my greatest service to the country.
You tweeted out this week some frustrations with Israel and their current leadership. Can you talk about what you think about what they're doing and what you would like to do in president in regards to them?
Well, first of all, let me say I am Jewish. And I love Israel. So let me make that very clear. But I'm running for President of the United States. So I say, as a Jew and as a lover of Israel, what is happening in Israel right now is the most far-right government in their history. And we must be honest here. The occupation is illegal. The settlements are illegal. The blockade of Gaza is a terrible injustice. And so sometimes you tell your friends the truth. The United States must hold Israel to the same standards that we would hold any government to. There is a memorandum of understanding where that $3.8 billion is given in military aid until 2028. However, the U.S. president can, and I would, absolutely insist that money, none of that money, no American money goes towards things which violate our principles of human rights. And I would do that. I would not take a hands-off approach. Donald Trump went right with the right-wingers in Israel. Biden, hands-off. I would be hands-on. I believe that our guiding principle has to be our Declaration of Independence. All men are created equal. That doesn't just mean all Americans. We must stand for both Israelis and Palestinians for robust both security and human rights, and I would.
We want to have a little bit of fun. We do something called personal issues on this game. This is 30 seconds, rapid fire. We get to know your cultural favorites and get to know you a little bit better. So here we go. What is your favorite TV show?
Well, I think right now, because Fran Drescher's so in the news, I'm thinking about The Nanny.
The Nanny. All right. Who's your favorite author other than yourself?
Oh, wow. Tolstoy.
Who's your favorite athlete of all time?
I don't know, Mark Spitz, because he was the first Jew that showed that you could do athletics at that level.
Do you have a favorite book?
Well, there's a book called Letters to a Young Poet by the poet named Rilke, Rainier Rilke. And along with Pride and Prejudice, I read it every couple years.
And lastly, who's your role model?
My parents.
And why is that?
My mother for her goodness, my father for his don't let the bastards get you down, little sister. I think about that a lot right now.
Well, very nice. Last time you were on, you talked about your favorite music, and you talked about your love of Motown.
Okay,
so we're going to play some music This is the Temptations. Get ready, because everybody's got to get ready for you, because here you come, right?
That's right.
Up next, we've got a different view from Republican leader James Gallagher, but first, we go to break with music from the Temptations. Marianne Williamson, thank you for coming in.
Thank you, Alex.
Best of luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you.
Right back with more of Issue Is after this.
If you wanna play hide and seek with love, let me remind you, it's alright.
I talked to Senator Grove about it this morning, which is indicative of my desire to see what we can do.
Last week, Governor Newsom went against some Democrats in the Assembly and backed Republican State Senator Shannon Grove's effort to toughen penalties for child sex traffickers.
I'm just incredibly pleased that this was able to get out of the Public Safety Committee and is on its way to appropriations.
Some of the Democrats first tried to stop that from happening. Let's talk about that issue and more with the Republican Assembly leader, James Gallagher. We've talked via Zoom many times, but it's your first time in the House. Nice to have you in the studio, and welcome back to The Issue Is.
Yeah, great to be here, Alex. Thanks for having me.
All right, so let's talk about that issue. Child sex trafficking got so much attention around the world, really. What was really happening behind the scenes on that front?
Well, look, I mean, this is just a common sense policy that we need to hold, to the greatest extent possible, child traffickers accountable. It hasn't been considered a serious felony. We've been trying actually for years to make it a serious felony. And I think people were just outraged when they saw that this bill that had bipartisan support, 40-0 in the Senate, get stalled in the Public Safety Committee.
How does that happen? I mean, what's really happening there?
It really highlights just how radical these public safety committees have gotten in the legislature. They will not support any new policy that creates a new crime or new penalties for crime. And they've taken this to just a radical extent.
So what happens to that bill going forward? Because now it's technically out of the committee, but it's not a done deal yet.
Yeah, so now it has to go to appropriations, and there's still some threats that they're going to try and change the bill, water it down. Senator Shannon Grove is saying, hey, I'm going to stand strong because we need this policy in place to better protect our children and to ensure that we have accountability for these monsters who are victimizing. California has some of the highest rates of human trafficking in the nation. So we need this policy. We hope there's not going to be any shenanigans as it goes to appropriations, and ultimately it'll be voted on the Assembly floor.
What does it say to you that Governor Newsom actually sided with you and not with the Democrats in his own party?
Oh, we were grateful for the support. And I think a lot of people weighed in, and certainly the public was outraged. We as Republicans, we want to push for common sense reforms. This criminal justice experiment that we've had in California is a failure.
Somebody else that was pushing back on the Democrats on that committee is the brand new Speaker of the Assembly, Robert Rivas, who is somebody that you have to work pretty closely with in your job. What do you make of Speaker Rivas, and what's the nature of your relationship going into this?
Well, I've had a good relationship with Robert. We both are from rural areas and represent areas that have issues with agriculture, water. So we've already worked together, and I'm looking forward to working with him as him being the Speaker. On this particular issue, he called me that morning and said, hey, we are going to hold an urgency hearing on this in the Public Safety Committee, and I give him credit for that. So that bill was able to move forward, and I think it was an example of how we can work together to pass reasonable policy. But make no mistake about it, that wouldn't have happened had Republicans not pushed for this policy to be heard, this bill to get passed.
And had there not been such a public outcry as well, a reminder that people need to speak up if they want to see something happen. So Robert Rivas is replacing Anthony Rendon, who was the Speaker for a long time before that. He was on our show as he was about to leave that office and talked about you when talking about homelessness. Here's some of what he had to say.
I think it's fair for people to be critical. I think it's fair for people to be concerned. One thing that Jim Gallagher, the minority leader, and I agreed on at the outset of this year was we need to look at accountability matrices. We need to make sure that the cities and local governments are spending that money effectively.
Would you say the state has failed when it comes to homelessness?
I mean, absolutely. I don't think there's any other way you can look at it. And, again, Anthony was somebody I worked with as well. We did agree that we need more accountability and oversight when it comes to this money and how it's being spent. But the other thing is we need a change in policy.
Right. I mean, what does that look like? Because clearly, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. We keep pumping more money into homelessness, and the problem gets worse over and over again. What sort of radical change do we need to see when it comes to homelessness so we have a different result?
Well, we can look to other states. So, for example, Texas, is spending about $800 to $900 per homeless person, and they've actually gotten results because the policies they're putting in place are actually reducing homelessness, getting people off of the streets. California is spending over $10,000 per homeless person. We spent $17 billion on this problem, only to have it actually get worse. So, we favor, Republicans, getting people off of the streets, having enforcement on encampments, and ensuring that people get into actual services that are going to empower them out of homelessness instead of enabling them in homelessness.
I mean, let's talk about another problem, which you could sort of say the definition of insanity, which is Republicans' success when it comes to California politics. Because right now you're in the minority, the super minority. The Democrats have super majorities in both houses. What have Republicans done wrong to put yourselves in this position, and how do you fix it going forward?
Well, I think, for one, we haven't really gotten out there and told people what we want to do as Republicans. And so when I came in as leader a year ago, I said, we're going on the offensive. No longer are we going to play defense to the Democrats. We're going to go out there and say, here are the problems, and here's how we would solve them. And we rolled out what I call the California Promise, where we had a list of policy proposals, how we would tackle homelessness, how we would deal with the fentanyl crisis, how we would deal, with the affordability crisis in California. We need to lower people's costs. We took on the gas tax and said we should suspend that and do something right now to help lower people's costs. And we made the Democrats be the ones to say no. And so what we're trying to tell the California voters is take another look at us. Take another look at this Republican Party who has solutions. And look, you have to admit that the Democratic supermajority has not been good for California. Homelessness exploding, crime on the rise, your cost of living exploding more and more every day. Nothing that they have done has lowered your cost of living in California. And I see that as one of the greatest crises that we are facing right now.
Okay, let's talk a moment about you, get people a chance to get to know you a little bit.
Sure.
You posted a picture on Instagram that I thought was really hilarious. This was your daughter's prom. And you're standing behind with the gun, sort of making a point about protecting everybody.
Yeah.
What was this moment like for you as your daughter's getting a little older?
It was a having fun moment.
Yeah.
My daughter, is 16. This was her prom. And I actually like her boyfriend quite a bit. He's a good guy. We fished together, and so I said, hey, this would be kind of fun to do this. And overwhelmingly people got it. They got the joke. Certainly had some folks out there who were saying some, pretty horrendous things, actually.
Yeah.
But this was a light moment, with my family, who I love very much. I have 5 kids with my wife, Jana.
Well, let's talk about that. Father of 5. I don't know how you do that and anything else. So how do you balance that? And how do those kids sort of shape your worldview in terms of what you do as leader?
It shapes everything. So my wife and I, we've known each other for a long time. We've been married for over 20 years now. She is my partner in all this. I couldn't do the job that I do without my wife. And so, look, it's always a challenge in politics to find the right balance. But I think we do, and I think my kids also know that, we're fighting for something better. I'm the 6th generation Californian, and I want to ensure there's a 7th generation that's living here and enjoying the great opportunities and benefits of the state.
Before you go, we do something on the show called Personal Issues. This is where we put 30 seconds up on the clock and we do rapid fire of your cultural favorites.
Right.
So here, we're going to see how this goes. Last time we stumped you on a few. What is your favorite band or musical artist?
Dropkick Murphys.
What's your favorite book of all time?
That's a tough one. Grapes of Wrath is up there.
Good one.
Yeah.
California. Who's your favorite athlete?
Was Michael Jordan. I would say these days, Dak Prescott.
Oh, very nice. Best part of being a Californian?
Just the legacy of opportunity, in California.
Very nice. And who's your role model?
My father, who worked very hard to make sure that, myself and my brothers had every opportunity.
Very nice. James Gallagher, great to have you here. I hope you come and visit us here more often. Up next, we're going to take you to a big honor for Sheila E. in Hollywood, so we're playing some of her music with Prince as we go to break. Next time, Dropkicks Murphys for you.
Okay.
Thanks so much
Fired it
for
up.
being here. We'll be back with more. The issue is right after this. Thanks, Assembly Member.
Thank
Great
you,
job.
man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
The Above Los Angeles Instagram page takes us above Hollywood, which is the center point in a labor struggle being seen all over the world. Last week, in the midst of the writers and actors strikes, the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce invited me to MC their annual State of the State gathering. We spoke to a variety of legislative leaders about the anxiety being felt by workers and how artificial intelligence is contributing to that.
The majority of people who are poor work. Sometimes they work 2 jobs. We just went through this pandemic, and that really exposed even more the poverty and the lack of access to so many basic things.
You're seeing people just fed up with the inability to pay for rent, to buy groceries. And we've seen food lines increase all across the district that I represent.
Part of what's happening here are some massive structural shifts that we're all trying to grapple with.
Automation could really change everyone's lives in amazing ways, where we have much more leisure time and where not everyone is working 60 hours a week, where people are working less and having time to enjoy their families and travel and all of that. But it's only if we structure society in a way so that the benefits of that is shared broadly.
Our thanks to all of them. On a lighter note, the most fun part of what the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce does is give out stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And recently, they honored their first female percussionist, Sheila E. Next week, Fox News anchor Brett Baer will be with us ahead of his moderating the first Republican debate. In 2 weeks, a special edition focused on athletes using their platforms for good. We'll sit down with Dodgers future Hall of Famer Clayton Kershaw and a conversation with Super Bowl champion Juju Smith-Schuster about the work done by his foundation. I was honored to host a Polynesian-themed luau for that foundation this weekend. So we leave you with some of the incredible dancing and music on display. We'll see you next week.
Hey, I told me, hey.